your discipline area. I think the discipline will be useful for you to know, Gavin, what disciplines are in the room. Yeah?
Yeah.
So if you put in your name and your discipline that you teach or coordinate or lead or manage, that would be great. Just pop that into the chat. Okay. And I think we started recording, so I'm going to just introduce you both. And for those of you that are, for some of you that may not know, Gavin and Jennifer, delighted to introduce you to Gavin Clinch, who's head of online learning, the student experience in online learning in IT Sligo. And we have Jennifer Gilligan, an instructional designer, similar to our learning technologists here in GMIT. So I've been working very closely with Gavin and Jennifer for a number of years, and we were lucky to before, I suppose long before we knew that we were going to become a TU, but certainly when we became under this alliance of the CUA, we've worked on projects on RPL assessment, developing MOOCs, looking at transitions and student engagement, and more recently with Digital Ed and iNote and lots of other initiatives. So there's a great working relationship between us here in GMIT and IT Sligo, and as we move forward to become a TU. So lots of exciting things ahead. So thanks for being here and sharing this session with us. I'll hand over to you now, Gavin.
Thanks, Karina. Thank you for the warm welcome. It's good to be here. Thanks for the invitation to join you. So the title is Towards a Culture of Academic Integrity. And these are really just baby steps, I think, that we're taking at the moment. Jennifer and I also presented at the International Centre for Academic Integrity virtual conference earlier this year. And really, when you look at what's been achieved by other universities, particularly in Australia and Canada and what they're doing, I can see we've a long way to go. And clearly, culture is not something that you develop overnight. It's something that needs to grow. So just to sort of put this into context then, Technological University, I was just saying there to Karina, we need to look at this in the context of being a technological university. I'm confident that it's going to happen in the next wee while, and hopefully others are too. So that's one element to it. The National Academic Integrity Network, which is a recent, I think it was 2019 that the QQI established that network. There are 3 working groups, a lot of development coming out of that. It's a very active network with regular plenary sessions. And I'm going to talk about some of their outputs through these slides. Reimagining assessment. This is part of the CUA SATL project. I'm getting a reverberation here. Could everyone make sure their microphones are off?
Yeah, just there's a repeat there. Let's just check. There's all the mics off.
Okay.
Okay, you want to try again?
Yeah, it's fine now. Thank you. So that's the SATL 2, funded by the National Forum, and we're going to be looking at reimagining assessment. I mentioned Epigeum there. I'm going to talk about the collaboration with Epigeum and the academic integrity courses that we have at IT Sligo, and the vertical line there, contract cheating, which is a vein that's running viciously through assessment and through academic misconduct. So I'll move on to the next slide. This is again part of the context. This is research that was carried out by Donald McCabe over a 12-year period. He's passed away now, but he was with the International Centre for Academic Integrity. And these figures, this is self-reporting by students who were asked in a survey, and they admitted to cheating in tests. And you can see the percentages for written assignments and for tests are very high at graduate and undergraduate. So that's again is the context, and I think it's something that we're conscious of, but we don't really. When you look at the hard facts and those figures, it's quite stark. And actually, that International Centre for Academic Integrity have recently launched a follow-on survey, a kind of McCabe 2, which they're putting out a call to universities, institutes of technology that can partner with them on that. And that's something that we've committed to do in Sligo, so we can survey our own students. So academic integrity is central to the culture of a higher education institute, and this is something that's been published from NAIN, the National Academic Integrity Network in Ireland. So it belongs to the academic and wider higher ed community and requires active commitment by all stakeholders. Maintenance and sustainability of academic integrity is the responsibility and to the benefit of all. So I like this sentence. I think it really kind of captures what academic integrity is. It's often called AI, but obviously then we've got artificial intelligence. So I have to say the whole thing. And then just definitions of academic integrity. This is from the European Network for Academic Integrity. It was adopted by our own National Academic Integrity Network, and it's a commitment, even in the face of adversity, to 5 fundamental values: honesty, trust, fairness, respect, and responsibility. And then this is the NAI1, compliance with ethical and professional principles, standards, practices, and a consistent system of values. So this reference to fundamental values of academic integrity is drawn up by the ICAI. A lack of a commonly understood vocabulary hinders progress in nurturing a culture of academic integrity, and it impedes the effectiveness of actions to prevent, detect, and sanction. And I think that we really want to focus on prevention, which is why I've kind of highlighted it in green. Prevention, detection gives us an opportunity for a kind of a teaching moment, in a way that we can talk to the students and explain what the misconduct is. You know, the sanction is really the last thing we want to engage with. We want to try and avoid that. And so this, I suppose, aligns to the reason that we brought in the academic integrity courses from Epigeum. And then the Donald Cress's fraud triangle from 1953, where we're talking about the opportunity to cheat, the pressure to cheat because you've 3 assignments to do, and the deadline is within 5 days, and then the rationalization, which is, well, I can't possibly do all of these assignments in 3 days, so I'm just going to cheat a little bit. So that's and that's, I think, something we need to look at as program boards, so that we're designing the assessment deadlines, we're spacing them out, and they're not all coming at the same time. But I think the information piece is critical here in terms of the prevention. So the NAIN offers guidance on the identification of a strategy for HEIs to engage with learners in the embedding of a positive culture of academic integrity. And I think this will help, and a national approach will help all of us in higher ed in Ireland. It's, as I say, culture is something that's going to take time, but if we can work with other institutes, as Karina was mentioning there, what DCU is doing, I think that's going to help us all. So institution-wide strategies to promote the culture of academic integrity, provide guidance and education for stakeholders. Sorry, slides have jumped. Mentor learners in the responsible conduct of research, institutional support for research ethics oversight, curriculum and assessment design and development, and ethical leadership. So we see that the AI courses from Epigeum provide this guidance to students and to staff. And I'm going to come on to those courses in a moment. So Edgar Schein wrote this, where does a culture reside? We've kind of touched on this already, but culture is a property of a group. And so that group could be a program team, it could be a program board, it could be the department, could be the faculty itself. And then culture exists at the level of the whole organization if there is sufficient shared history. But in the context of even of our own institute, we don't have that shared history yet. In the context of the TU, that's something we will need to develop. And then, it's found at industry or sector level. So again, this kind of plays back to the work of Nain and what they're doing, and I guess a pivotal role is that they have. Now, an academic integrity policy, we don't have one at IT Sligo. We have a plagiarism policy. I don't know if you have one at GMIT or Letterkenny or other institutes that are represented here, but it's something that we've committed to developing under our LTA committee. So academic integrity education for all stakeholders, again, links to the Epigeium courses. And the Australian body, the TEXA website, and Tracy Brettag talk about this, details what is required of an AI policy. And here we have what is an exemplary policy, which requires regular review, identifying and resourcing AI champions, academic integrity education for all engaging students. So the Epigeium course, those of you who aren't familiar with Epigeium, they're a spin-out company, and now with Oxford University Press. We have worked with them on 3 other projects, two of which I think you have, academic success, and sorry, you have in GMIT, I should say, academic success, and the Being Well, Living Well, which I know you have in Letterkenny as well. So this was we worked with them on this based on our success on the 2 previous projects, and they've developed these courses, which is a student-facing course and a staff-facing course. And again, this was something that went through our LTA committee onto Academic Council. We were part of a development group, alpha and beta stages, staff workshop that we held. Then subsequent to that, when we invited Dr. Fiona Reardon of DCU, that was in January 2020. This was really the kind of the launch of the student-facing courses. And the intention was really to work with staff on the staff-facing courses, and then to encourage them to work with their students. Obviously, the kind of the pandemic kind of got in the way of a lot of this, so we didn't have any follow-on workshops. So just briefly on Epigeium, as you mentioned, a shout out to Nick Broom, who's a contact and has collaborated with us with this and with presentations. So founded at Imperial College London, and now part of the Oxford University Press. And you can see there the stats. They have partners around the world. Their model is a good one. They partner with universities, a lot of them in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, UK, other countries in the world, in terms of developing the courses. The lead for this program was the late Professor Tracy Brettag, sadly passed away last year. And you can see the other authors there. Thomas Lancaster at Imperial College London is very focused on academic integrity. He's a good resource. He's a good person to talk to. And so this just the program structure then, 2.5 hours of core activities on the student-facing modules, 3 hours on the staff-facing modules. And there is additional content then. I know it looks like a lot of time, but the core ones are critical. And then the additional ones are there. They're self-paced courses, so students and staff can work through them at their own time. So the audience, the undergrads, the teaching staff, educational development staff, and professional admin staff. And then just that's just the structure really of the modules themselves.
Gavin, can I ask, is that available to, is it just available to IT Sligo at the moment, is it?
It is. We had a contract. We were part of the development group, so we have we have a license for the courses. The license is in perpetuity. I spoke to Nick about the fact that we were going to become a TU. So he said he would contact you on that, because we'll have to look at that in terms of having it available to all of the students. Being well, living well, we agreed that as a CUA, but this one wasn't. But
the fact that we're becoming a TU, maybe you'll just be able to share it.
Yeah, I think we'll have to take that conversation outside of this.
Yeah, no, it looks. I'd love to get some screenshots of it, but I think Jennifer's going to talk about it.
Jennifer is going to talk a lot more about. Jennifer's done all the hard work in terms of integrating the courses into Moodle. She's going to talk about that.
Great. Thanks.
Right. So, assessment integrity. I think that I just wanted to focus on assessment through the lens of the pandemic and on online e-assessment, where so much of our assessment has gone, particularly in terms of moving exams. That we can't have exams at the moment, or we can't have traditional exams. So they're either alternative assessments, or maybe they're open book exams. And this is an area that I think we really need to kind of consider. And this is just, again, a little context that no harm in letting everyone know that our online student numbers are growing year on year, and we have over 5,000 students in the current academic year. So that's something. I mean, that's always been an issue, perhaps, for us in terms of academic integrity. You know, who are the students? How do we verify they are who they say they are? But we have, in most cases, I think, still brought those students into an exam hall and got them to write a traditional exam. So this is, I suppose, what's being used in terms of online proctoring, candidate authentication. A lot of the providers of online proctoring are using these technologies: face recognition, voice recognition, keyboard rhythm, keyboard analysis, writing style analysis, and anti-plagiarism tools. And so there's a question: is this the culture of assessment and academic integrity that we want? Do we want this as an institution? Do we want to go down this road? This is a quote from Michel Foucault, and it picks up on Jeremy Bentham's idea of the panopticon, which was developed as a prison. A couple of prisons were modelled on that, and that idea that one person can see everybody. So Foucault says that and this is of the inmates, that they are seen, but they do not see. They are objects of information, never subjects in communication. And I think this speaks to a school of thought that these technologies are the surveillance, I suppose, the pedagogy of surveillance, and that we are invading the privacy of students by having proctored exams where they're being watched through the camera and their rooms are being watched. Sorry, I'll come back to that. Yeah, this is another, I suppose, technology that we're looking at using: digital forensics. This is a paper that was published recently using digital forensic techniques to identify contract cheating, looking at how the data in Office XML format, a Word file, can be gathered and assessed to see, is there a pattern of editing which is inconsistent. So a technology that we can use. We're already using technologies on anti-plagiarism, but this one is digging down even further. So, wearable tech. This is, again, something that has emerged over the last few years. People are no longer allowed to wear watches into an exam hall because it's not a standard watch anymore. It's connecting to the internet. And here you can just see examples of wearable tech into the future: tattoos on the skin, contact lenses, items of clothing. So my question here is, is the wearable tech plus the surveillance tech, does that equal a technological arms race? that's I think a question that we really need to look at, because we can just keep on developing more and more technology, which is uncomfortable for the students, and those who want to cheat maybe just find more and more technologies to work around it. So authentic assessment seems to be a realistic alternative to going down that road of using so much technology, and a realistic alternative perhaps to those terminal exams where we get everybody together and we primarily test their memory, I think. This is work that was carried out by Raina Paloff and Keith Pratt in their work on lessons from the virtual classroom, realities of online teaching. So they identify the problem with tests and quizzes being that it's typically assessing low-level learning, often not aligned with learning outcomes, and that the overuse can promote the cheating. And there's the criticism as well that online proctoring systems really just replicate this a practice that isn't actually efficient in person. Exams are good for managing faculty workload, assessing low-level skills and content knowledge, but they're not good at demonstrating student learning or mastery of a topic. So authentic learner-centered collaborative assessments, one way we might make assessments more authentic and less susceptible to cheating is to have students embed their own experiences in their assessments. So that will, I mean, when I say writing assignment, this is the work of Paloff and Pratt, and they're talking about writing assignments, collaborative assignments, case studies. We know from the students that we have who are doing projects, they're online students and they're based in an industry, and they can write case studies around the work that they're actually doing in the workplace, which is much more authentic than perhaps a kind of a hypothetical case study or a project. And then that brings me on to program-focused assessment. This is something that we have. This is a model of the architecture program, or architecture programs really across the world.
So
that
this is a Mass Learning Center in GMIT, and this is so here you can book.
Someone's got their microphone on again.
The tutor.
Sorry, somebody didn't turn off their mic. Let's just check who it is.
It's okay. I found
Yeah,
that.
you get it? Okay. Sorry. Okay.
That's okay. Right. So program-focused assessment. Say we use it in architectural, in the teaching of architecture, and it's really about a capstone project where the learning from all of the modules across the program basically are made explicit in a final project. So we will have a design studio project, which is 30 credits. So it's very high credits for that module. And then the other modules will be maybe 10 or 15, 5, 10 or 15, be design theory, technology, design communication, history of architecture. So that should all come through in a 13-week project. So it's one long project. So it's high stakes. The weighting of the assessment and the final qualification is high, and the extent to which the assessment covers the program outcomes is high. And you can see there from that graph, this is work done by Bradford University a few years ago. And I think it's a model that, you know, I've spoken to colleagues in different disciplines and they say, oh, that's great, but it wouldn't work for our program. I'm not convinced. I think that this is something that would work for a lot of programs. I certainly accept that it's when there is a particular professional element to it. And, you know, we would have worked with the Royal Institute of British Architects and the RIAI in Ireland as professional bodies when we look for accreditation. But I think it can work for programs that aren't leading towards a particular profession. But the idea really at the end of this is that a student presents their work and there's no real hiding place, because they're putting up their drawings, they're talking about the design, they talk about how they integrate the other elements of learning into that. So it's about the application of their knowledge rather than sort of repetition through exams. And something that I think is a similar idea is the interactive oral assessment. I've put some links in there for you to have a look at later on. Again, this is something that I know Fiona O'Riordan is looking at. I think DCU are working with Griffith University in Australia. But these are nicely structured little interactive pieces. It's not a question and answer test, but it's an exchange of ideas between the lecturer and the student. And I say I'm not going to dig into this now, but there are links there will give you more information as to how that model works. And it's something we've started talking about in IT Sligo. I think it's something we want to focus on, perhaps look at through the SATL project on reimagining assessment, and start to get program boards together to have a look at how they might use something like this. I think ultimately we have an opportunity through what's been a very horrible pandemic. We have an opportunity to reflect on how we move forward in terms of education, in terms of teaching and learning, and in terms of assessment, how we address academic integrity, how we start to develop a culture of it. And I think now is the time that we should look at that, and we have that opportunity to do so. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Jennifer. Jennifer, are you okay to take control? You're on mute, Jennifer.
Sorry. Sorry about that. So basically, I'm going to take over now because I'm going to go through with you how we customized and implemented the academic integrity content for our students. So just coming from an instructional designer's point of view. So our focus for the integration of academic integrity content took the shape of a 5-strand approach. The first one was to use as many opportunities as possible to provide multiple navigational links into the content. The second one was to give students control over their own learning. The third one was to customize the content. Although it is Epigeum content, we wanted it to be in context with IT Sligo. We wanted to include staff and integrate the content into their modules of study. And we wanted to continuously improve and develop what we had. So in discussing the first one, in providing multiple navigational links, this screenshot here demonstrates how we did this. So this took the form of a dedicated location for information on academic integrity and an emphasis on our website within the Student Hub, dedicated to student resources. So that was the logical place to put a dedicated web page. So that web page has a direct link from it into our VLE. And within our VLE, we have a dedicated Moodle page. So this Moodle page houses all of the Epigeum content. We also leveraged the My Supports tab. And now this is a tab that we have in IT Sligo. It's a customized tab that we created in Moodle to house all student supports which exist within Moodle. So this process, in actually carrying out this process, it helped us to map out where other resources existed in Moodle and allowed us to point from them back into the AI content. So this was a process of mapping and overlapping. Another thing that we done was we created focus at Induction 2020 by creating an interactive schedule for our induction week. So we themed our induction to include a presentation from our registrar about exams and academic integrity, and then we followed up in the schedule with dedicated time to explore the academic integrity content and complete it. So this presented a logical sequence within induction week into our resource. We also introduced an incentive by completing all 3 modules within the content. We are awarding students a digital badge. So the second focus was to give students control over their own learning. So in order to help students manage their own learning, we divided the content into 3 manageable chunks. And this worked out pretty well because they are 1 hour manageable chunks that we divided them into. So by segmenting the content into self-paced workload, we were also able to introduce self-monitoring and reporting. So we gave students timing information, such as the overall durations of the 3 elements. And then Epigeium itself, within its content, drills down and actually gives students minute by minute completion time on each page of content. So for example, they may show or demonstrate a piece of content which may take 5 minutes, followed by a 10-minute activity. So this allows students to manage their time and pick up where they left off if necessary. The segmented content also allows students to choose what content is most relevant to them at any particular time and focus on that. And we also used activity completion tick boxes. We placed them on the main interface to guide students to incomplete sections. And then overall progress is displayed on a progress bar, which acts as a visual indicator of individual progress, and it updates dynamically as students progress through the academic integrity content. So the Moodle page needed a place to share knowledge and ask questions about academic integrity. So later we introduced a discussion forum. Moodle also allowed us to create a personalised interface and dashboard with overall content completion percentages upon entry into the Moodle site. We gave students knowledge about badging, how and where they could use and store their badges. And as I mentioned previously, we do award a badge upon completion. So the third focus was the customization in context with IT Sligo. So the most effective way to do so was to weave in our own visuals and graphics, making the content more familiar to the students. So the Epigeium content allows you to slot in content where necessary by editing the SCORM packages coding, adding in welcome pages, additional resources and links to our own policies and procedures. The fourth focus was to include staff in this process. So, sorry, I've lost my space there. So by working with lecturers on a one-to-one basis, students may also be awarded a percentage towards another module of study in some cases. So working with lecturers is very effective because we were able to add in links directly from their Moodle pages into our AI content, so that it became seamless for a student to access the content directly from a different module of study. So by hosting an academic integrity workshop with staff, we also raised awareness and allowed us to discuss concerns that staff had and generate ideas with groups of staff. So an academic integrity tile was introduced as an additional way of embedding the content into lecturers' modules. By integrating it in this way, it is to add value to the academic integrity content. It gives students time and merit for completion, and it gives lecturers a resource that is ready to use. As well as that, it's up to date and it's easy to report back to the lecturer on students' participation. So if we see here on this slide, it's an example of how we worked with the Department of Health and Nutritional Science in adding links directly from their Moodle page into our AI content. That took the shape of a dedicated tile in Moodle, and it was incentivized by adding a value of 10% towards the overall module mark. The lecturer, seeing the relevance of the completion of the academic integrity content before asking students to complete any formal assignments, so that they had an understanding of AI prior to being presented with a formal brief within her class. So the last strand was continuous improvement, and this entails us looking at our Moodle reporting and to gauge engagement within the content and to improve on the resources. So we learned from that initially that we needed to provide more focus within the discussion forum to stimulate more engaging and relevant discussion. We know that we would really like to work more closely with lecturers to provide insight into what they really need and to provide further integration into other modules of study. Our future focus is on events and activities that raise awareness and to gather vital feedback from staff and students. So I suppose what we've learned is we have to be able to bend and flex our delivery and roll out in accordance to our audience. So if anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to take those.
Karina, do you want to come back in?
Sorry, I thought my mic was on. And I hear the rain is coming down outside now. It's getting heavy, but thanks a million. That's fantastic. I really would love to get that resource, Jennifer. So we'll have to talk about that again, and maybe we'll talk to Nick about, but the fact that you've localized it, I wonder, we probably have to do some localization here in GMIT. We've recently brought in another resource. As you know, with a lot of these EpiGM resources, they have to be set up for our own environment. Was there a lot of work involved, Jennifer, with that? A lot of time?
It depends on what you want to do with it, because in its essence, you could actually insert the SCORM as it is, with very little additional content. The EpiGM content tends to be, if anything, there might be too much in it. You might want to actually, take out some of the content to probably break it up into more manageable chunks. But because it is so good, in fact, you could do a minimal job on, in adding links. But it's important to make sure, I suppose, that if you really want it to be in context with, the student's environment, it is important to add in some visuals at least. But it's a great way of connecting up resources that you already have. So you have the opportunity on a side panel to the main content within the SCORM to add links at vital parts where, they're being introduced to a topic and that a resource exists in the college that they really should look at, that they should contact someone if they need help, and you have that additional resource there at that point. So it is good to go through the content and make the most of it. But if you did want to start off with a pilot, you could actually insert the SCORM as it is packaged up from EpiGM and run it and get feedback, and then maybe start working on the SCORM for a second iteration.
Yeah. Now saying that, we've a lot of resources that the library have developed here in GMIT. Did you collaborate with your library service when you were customizing and localizing content? Was there content available in your library service that you could embed? Yeah.
Yeah, the good thing is that we have already gone through this process with the other resources that we got from EpiGM, and there's huge overlaps continuously with the library, with student services, with the student union. So if you are involved in the first implementation of any EpiGM resource, you tend to make those connections. And you find the resources and you chat to those people. And I was lucky enough to be involved in the previous ones. So I knew what was there. But if there was anything I was looking for, I suppose it's good to open up the discussion with them. It's good to have them evaluate the resource too, and let you know if there is anything else that is missing that you haven't included. And the good thing about Moodle is you have the choice to not touch the SCORM, but to add in additional resources or links on the main Moodle page. And the advantage of this is that if the resource ever changes or moves, if it's, for example, to a web page and that web page moves, at least you can update the resource in Moodle very easily compared with a SCORM package, which involves, you know, taking it down and looking at the code. So I would recommend that. We actually had our whole library change web server, and this was a few years back, and academic success was heavily reliant on links directly into the library website. So I actually had to revise the whole module because of that. So going forward, I learned a lesson to keep most of my resources outside on the main Moodle page.
Yes, very good. I
think,
wonder,
Marina, just to
thanks,
add
Jennifer.
to that, I think that, you know, to contextualize the courses for the institute, like I've spoken to others who have done this, and you know, you're probably looking at a half day per week for an instructional designer, maybe over a 6-month period, and then some ongoing work after that. Jennifer's like real expertise now because she's done a few of them, but it's, you know, there is a bit of work to do, but it has to be contextualized. You've got to start linking it to your own policies and procedures and to practice on the ground.
So we're currently reviewing the DCU hub that just came in. Kevin Cunningham, who's one of our instructional designers or learning technologists here in GMIT, he's looking at that. So we might get back to you on that, Jennifer, and we'll just see where possible, maybe Nick might be able to provide access to a resource that we need, or we could look at how it could be rolled out across the CUA. But anyways, going back to just some of the comments and some of the areas you looked at, Gavin, in your talk, I'm intrigued by the digital forensic techniques and where are they being used in Ireland, or are we a bit behind really in relation to the digital tools to, I suppose, to support proctoring, that whole online proctoring and vigilation experience? Where are we in Ireland in relation to that kind of technology adoption?
There aren't many providers in Ireland, educational providers in Ireland, that have turned to online proctoring. I think we started early. We started in Sligo. We started in 2014, and it was actually a program that I was the course director of at the time, construction management. And I looked at it because we had students across multiple time zones, right across the world, students from North America down to Australia. And so we were faced with this dilemma that how will we provide them with an exam? And at this point, we were looking at terminal exams. We could have, because obviously our students take a final exam at the same time. So if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they have to take it at the same time. So that created a problem, because if it was 2 o'clock in Ireland, it was going to be 7 hours earlier in Canada, and it was probably midnight in Australia. So if we sent a physical paper to a university or to an exam center, if we could find one, who was going to invigilate at that time? Then we discussed, well, do we have 3 exam papers, and we've got to write different exam papers? I knew that wasn't going to be go down well with the lecturers. So we engaged with it early on, and we've again taken fairly sort of small steps with it. It's really, we have a procedure for online exams. It's really just was developed for online learners who, for one reason or another, couldn't come to an exam centre in Ireland. We have 3: Cork, Dublin, and Sligo. And now, obviously, when the pandemic came, we looked at what could we scale that up. But we immediately hit a problem, because our provider, our online proctoring provider, their invigilators are based in India, and India was hit, this is a year ago, with the pandemic, and they had to close down their centres, so they couldn't do live invigilation. In America, it's been fairly widely used, online proctoring, but because their model is different, it seems to be different for their universities. So if I want to take my exam this evening at 8 o'clock, I can register to take it then. If you want to take yours on Sunday at 7 in the morning, you choose to take it then. So it's a different model, which means that if the technology fails and I can't do my exam at 8 this evening, I can do it again tomorrow morning or the next evening. But with our high stakes exams, and they're set at one time, that sort of heightens those issues. Yeah. Again, some of the providers are using a more of a light touch. Our current provider is a fairly light touch in that they're being watched.
Who are you using at the moment?
We're using Examity.
All right. Okay. So we're using Proctor Exam. Yeah. So that you probably remember we started off with a small pilot, and now it has grown in the last 6 months for high stakes exams. So there's still a small community that's using the online proctoring, but we have set up that system within our exams office, and it's going well. But like there has been challenges with it. But I do wonder, is there other ways? So looking at the wearable technology and the other proctoring, I suppose, or what would you call them, forensic type tools. I wonder, is there other ways of other technology tools coming down the line that are even going to compete against this online proctoring like Examity and Proctor Exam going forward? Will there be another alternative? Because some students are feeling that the proctoring, the Proctor Exam or Examity is quite intrusive, or they feel like, this big brother, and just like that image that you had shown, and some are having anxiety attacks with the whole experience. And I know our learning technologists recently had to support the exams office in creating really student-friendly videos and guides so that the students were more comfortable with engaging with proctoring. But I wonder, is there other options for us to look into, other authentication type, tools that could maybe perhaps plug into Moodle, or, you know what I mean?
I think, you have to make that decision if you want to go down that road as an education provider. Do we want to use more and more technology to identify that it is Karina Ginty taking this exam and it's not?
And where do we really need it? That's the question.
So I think that, what I was really saying through that presentation was that I think that's the wrong road to go down. I think we need to look at more genuine, authentic, alternative exams where the learner embeds their learning and it's more explicit in the forms of assessment that they do, such as the capstone projects or the oral assessments.
I would agree. And there was a resource that I shared there. I thought it was a fantastic collection that Sally Brown and Kay Samble have put together on authentic assessment. And it just shows you how you can create, like we're well aware of those examples, but just promoting that to the academic community around the value of real world authentic assessments. And I suppose our project with reimagining assessment hopefully will kind of hit that a little bit more across the CUA over the next year. Is there any questions from anybody here? You can raise your hand, talk freely, anybody. There might be challenges people are having in relation to the upcoming assessments that are taking place or that have taken place, I suppose we've been very similar to yourselves. A lot of CAs have taken place throughout the year as a result of COVID. And there is some proctoring going on, though, this week, next week. It's been requested, what I mean, where a program board would have requested for a high stakes, particularly some of our medical, the medical science program. Professional bodies, the accountancy programs. And it's interesting how the professional bodies really want, they want reassurances that, yes, how are you invigilating? How are you ensuring the integrity of the assessment? And they are, I suppose they're old. I don't want to say old thinking, but I mean, the traditional form of assessment, and perhaps they don't, appreciate the value there is other forms of measuring authentic learning. But anyways,
there is lessons to be learned from institutes, universities that have said to their students, you must take this online exam, where students are now taking legal cases against the university. And I think if we are going to, or we do provide online proctoring, but I think it's much better if we do it with an alternative, an offer of an alternative. If you do not want to take an online exam, then there's an alternative assessment.
Yeah, and that's true. Something that we worked through. I remember when we were working through, I suppose, the GDPR side, when we were setting up the proctor exam, and one recommendation that came through from our data protection officer is that we need to provide options, and that we need to ensure that they consent to this experience of proctoring. And we actually had to ensure the students understood there was an alternative, that you could actually come in on site and that we would provide that alternative if they were not happy. Now that was pre-COVID, so there was different things there's different options they have signed up to as a result of the COVID experience. But I don't know, does anybody else want to come in there? Any last questions or comments or thoughts on your feelings? As I said, we have a group. Some of the members of the group are here as well. There's an academic integrity group. I see Claire London. How are you, Claire? You might want to say something. Claire is working on a case study on maths and academic integrity at the moment. Is that right, Claire?
Yeah, maths is the biggest.
Well, I will be, Karina.
You will be.
When I get to that on my list, I will be.
Yes,
no,
yes.
I just the authentic form of assessment for mathematics, I just wonder how to do that with the level at which we're at with our students in mathematics. Like we've struggled this year with what can you give them as an alternative when you're trying to examine that they have achieved a certain skill. We're still at the skills level, particularly in the early years of mathematics. So an oral exam isn't really quite the way to do it. And I would welcome any suggestions as to what would be the alternative to a final exam paper for, like we've done a huge variety of continuous assessment, but it's all unsupervised, So do we let them through the entire year doing different types of assessments where you have no idea which student did it and did they get help doing it and whatever, or did they Google it if it was supposed to be closed book, But we are struggling, yes, to come up with alternative forms of assessment which will examine and, examine our learning outcomes and will of course be kind of have integrity as an integral part of them, if you'll pardon the pun. But that's really, that's it's been a huge learning curve this year now, and we're not anywhere near the answer to that question yet,
No, maths is a difficult one, and I know there's quite a big focus on maths assessment in the context of academic integrity. I know we have one lecturer in mechatronics who uses WIRIS do you have WIRIS in GMIT? It's a plug-in to Moodle or to other VLEs, and he uses it. So what he will do is create the kind of the formula or the model that he wants, and the students, and then WIRIS will randomly populate that with different numbers. So if we're all taking an exam, we all get different numbers in, which means that the students not be communicating with each other and using the same ones.
Well, we are using Stack. We are using Stack, which is randomly generated. But we've tried it all, randomly generated, shuffled. But the problem is, as we have discussed at our meeting, is there's a huge amount of software out there, phone apps where you just literally hover over the screen and it's whether it's randomly generated or not. You see, there's the issue of them copying from someone else, and then the bigger issue now is the bigger issue is being able to get your answer online.
Yeah.
Just like that, you know, that's a bigger issue now than plagiarism, because once you do randomly generated, a student only has time to do their own if you do a good tight time limit as well on it, you know. But it's this other side of it, the technology out there at the minute that is, I mean, because quizzes are, I mean, it's great if you can do randomized and you can time them and then you get them to upload. We try and get them upload written work and, you know, but it makes then a huge thing out of a quiz, which is not what it's designed to be if you have to go through all their written work to get answers as well, you know. So yeah. So I mean, I've heard of Whereas, yes, but I have used over the years. I've used Numbus, but we're now using Stack because again, it was like an issue you mentioned. If I use Numbus, it has to come in as a scoring package. If I use Stack, it's in Moodle and much more efficient as a result, you know. So yes, so we have tried a lot of things, yes, and we have tried the randomly generated and the shuffled and the whole lot, but you realise when you get the written work up from the students that a lot of Googling has gone on to get the answer for the quiz. Yeah. And they have full answers for the quiz, not supported by the written work to justify those answers, you know. So that's why we need a final exam and we need a proctored one. It's the only piece of continuous assessment where they will not have access to anything, you would hope anyway, you know, except what's between their 2 ears, basically, hopefully, you know.
It would, Claire, it'd be interesting to get your views on that collection that was put together by Sally Brown, which gives examples from across universities in Ireland, colleges and universities in Ireland and the UK. Yeah. We should have a look at them and maybe pull out some of those examples that are...
Are they the ones you put on the
workgroup
website?
There.
Oh, I looked at the ones you put on, say, the Academic Integrity Workgroup website.
That's the hub. Yeah. So that's one. But this one is hot off the press, a new one.
Okay.
That Sally Brown and Kay Samble. You might, unless you join the chat early, sometimes you don't see it. I'll put it again in the link.
Would you please? Because no, I didn't check my email and I was going into the link for this morning and wondering why there was nobody there for a while. So I missed the beginning of the meeting for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I have to share it with everybody.
Yeah.
So I've just put it in the chat there again, Claire.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
There on maths, and actually our own Trish O'Connell that we know here in GMIT, she one of her assessments was included in this collection.
Good.
And I think it's in relation. I think it's in biopharmaceutical science.
Yes, yeah, she
but
teaches.
It probably is. I'm sure it's a maths and data problem that she had presented to them.
Yes.
Now I just see some other hand is up. Now I do have to go to another session, but.
That's me. Yes, you're due to present in the next session.
Better go.
So I'm going to stop the recording because I've got to mosey myself over as well.
Okay.